Hello everybody, it's Donna here. Thank you for joining me. I'm on a voiceover today because our house has been having some quite major renovation work and it's just been impossible to film really without hearing a load of noise. So today we are using envelopes to make some storage for some of the ephemera that I have. Now I have currently these things that I have already either prepped or pre-made ephemera or ephemera that I have purchased, and it's fine. It works. In fact, it works really well. However, I have noticed that I don't reach for it as often as I probably could. So I had the idea of making some little holders, very simple ones, that I can keep next to my desk, which may encourage me to reach for these bits and pieces a little more often. Now on the wall next to my desk, I do have a little wire basket. I'll insert a quick picture of it, and I thought that would be the perfect place to keep these little bits and bobs that were close to hand. And my idea is that anything kind of seasonal, so for example, as we're going to spring, I can get that type of ephemera out and then it's there ready to grab when I need it. Now I also have loads and loads of envelopes. Some are junk journal envelopes, some are envelopes that are just spare, some are envelopes that have come from kits, but as you can see I have lots, and I know that most of us do have a lot of envelopes in our stash. So I thought, why not use what I have, make use of these envelopes and repurpose them. So that's what I am doing today. So as you can see, I've got various sizes. To do this, you just need 2 envelopes of the same or very similar size. You'll see that 2 of mine aren't perfectly sized and it still works fine. But the closer you can get in size, probably the better. And we're just going to use a method that you've probably all seen before, or a lot of you have seen before, unless you are new to junk journaling. And that's just where we put the flap of one envelope inside the other, and it makes a little booklet. Now I am also making use of some washi that I have in my collection. I have a lot of really wide washi, which I thought would be ideal for this. Some of the washi happens to be the perfect width of the envelope, so I can get these envelopes covered really quickly and efficiently without very little effort. Now, some of these envelopes do need me to cover the sticky, so I am doing that with some washi tape. Some of the envelopes where there isn't that self-adhesive strip don't need this doing to it, but some of them do. So again, I'm just making use of this washi tape and getting it all covered. And then you just put the covered flap on the inside of the envelope, and then you turn it over and you stick that back flap down, and it's done. That's it basically. And you could leave it as this. If you wanted a really quick project, something that you can just throw your bits and bobs into, you literally could leave it like this and you wouldn't need to cover it at all. So this is the wide washi that I was telling you about, and you can see it's almost perfect width, just a tiny bit wider, but that works out well because I can just turn it around to the other side and give it a really nice finish on the edge. You can see how quick that was. I literally just stuck it down, mitering these corners so that they will fold over nicely. And then I just repeat that on the other side. And Bob's your uncle, we've made a really quick ephemera holder. Now this one, it's just a leftover piece, so I'm sticking that down, and then I patch it up with some other washi, but I do put a pocket on here so I don't actually cover the whole of this side of the envelope. This is the leftover piece from the piece that I cut off to do the inside. So I'm just using that up just to patch it in a little bit, and then that bottom bit I just leave. And then this washi, it's not as wide, but it's the perfect width for the front side of the envelope. So I use this one quite a lot throughout the video, especially for these envelopes that have these windows. It fits really nicely onto there. And then I use a slightly thinner one to patch in between. The footage that you're seeing, I haven't sped up at all. I have edited some of the kind of boring bits, or the bits that you didn't need to see, such as me peeling the backing off the washi tape. But this isn't sped up at all, so you can see how quickly this comes together. This is the actual speed that I'm working. So if it's a rainy day, or you've got a spare half an hour, or you don't have that long to craft but you do want to do something, this might be a great little project for you. I ended up doing 4 in the end. I didn't use all 4. But they're one of those things, you know, once you get started, you kind of just carry on. Also, a great way to use that washi tape as well, if you're like me and you have a lot of washi tape. I don't know why, because I use it quite often, but it just never seems to go down. But not having to cut bits of paper really was a big time saver in this. These flats were a little bit annoying. I just inked over them in some of the other envelopes, but hadn't thought at this point. So where you can see the curved bit around the curved corners of that of those windows, I do actually use some really thin, I think it's a Halloween collection, it's by Tim Holtz. I think it's called Designer Tape, possibly. And that tube has some really thin washi in it, so I do actually go around and square off those edges because they were just annoying me a little bit. I also, months ago, sat down and did some stamping on some decorative paper that I had, just to switch it up a little bit and just stop it from being like a plain sheet. And these fitted really nicely onto the envelopes. So I'm going to utilise those in some of the other booklets that I make. I don't think I put them onto this first one. I think I was just getting them organised. But on this first one, I think I just stick to the washi, and then in a second I'm going to ink around in walnut stain. You can just see a little white border there on the edge, so we just get that covered, get it neatened up a little bit. Oh, so I am using those papers, that's right, yeah. So I actually use them to help me make a pocket. So here I'm doing a very mathematical and precise way of measuring my pocket, which is to fold the piece of paper until I think it looks okay. So third time lucky, I decided to go for this. And then once I've got the height, I just shift the paper over to get the width and put a little pencil mark, so then I can chop that off. Then I fold it over the bottom and chop that off. As I said, very scientific, very mathematical. I always like to fold over at the top because I then stick it down and I feel like it strengthens the top a little bit from where we're going to be putting things in and out. And I also stick some scrap cardboard on the back as well. I did it in two sections. I did this bottom section because I thought it would balance out where I'd folded over at the top, but it didn't, and it just flopped around a little bit. So I ended up putting another piece at the top anyway. So I should have just stuck it all down like in one go, but this worked. So then I've cut some smaller bits of that paper, sticking them down to strengthen them, and I'm going to make a couple of smaller pockets out of these. On most of these little booklets, I do put pockets, and you'll see when I actually come to fill them, I do actually add more pockets on as well. However, I think there's 2 out of the 4 where I didn't add pockets on because the envelopes had a very deep opening, like a V shape, and I just didn't feel like there was room. But on these longer ones, I did add quite a few. This is the Tim Holtz tape. It's got loads of different washes in it. They're all quite thin, but there's some really thin ones. And I just went for this one here. And I just used it to square off the window. I felt like it just finished it off a little bit. Another option you could do, if you've got blue inside your window like mine, is to cover that. But because I didn't want to make a big deal out of these, I didn't want to be too precious over them, I just decided to leave that blue. It didn't bother me at all. So these are my next envelopes. They're the same size, but I did realise there were different envelopes, but they still work fine. On these ones, I'm cutting the flap off because the flaps on that other one were really irritating me. And then on this one, because it was already brown, I just grabbed a stencil. And as you can see, I'm not being overly careful with it. I'm just doing a little bit of stenciling on the front. This stencil, I can't give you the name of because I found it in a charity shop for 50p, but it's a nice handy little thing. So I hope you are all doing well. I have started a second channel, so if you like colouring, you might like to go and check that channel out. It's just me colouring, basically. I'm trying really hard this year to pick my colouring back up. It helps me loads in my mental health and my anxiety. And at one stage, I did loads of colouring, and then you just get out the habit of things, don't you? But I am trying hard this year to get back into it, and I thought starting a channel would help me. keep me on track a little bit. So it's called Donna Colours, and if you would like to have a look, I will leave the link. So I put the first stencil away and then realised I have the other side of the envelope to do. So I grabbed this Tim Holtz one, which is one of my favourite ones. And I just did the inside of the envelope with this one. And then I think I used a third one on the flap once I stuck it down, because I've put the Tim Holtz one away and then realised I hadn't stenciled the flap. So I just grabbed the next one that I saw. So this is an old stencil. You can see it's really well used. Just went over the flap with this one. Nothing's too perfect with these. I just did them quickly. Again, this footage is still at the speed I was working. Then on the front, because I already had the brown and I had done the stenciling, I just put a little bit of decoration on there with some ripped up washi tape and this die cut that I had in my bits and bobs box. Just coloured it up a little bit and stuck it on the front. And then a little bit of ripped up washi on the back. And then this one was done, so that was my second one. The third and fourth ones I go through a little bit quicker because it's exactly the same process. For this third one, I have this paper which is sticky on the back. I can't remember where I got it. I've had it for ages, so I just thought I would make use of it. And I went through and found one that I liked the least. Stuck that on the front, covered up the two ends with a little bit of washi. That was that one completed. I think I collaged on the back with some of those papers, yeah. And again, this one came together really, really quickly. This is the envelope that's a little bit shorter, but it works fine. You just got to kind of get it middled. Make sure it closes okay, and then there's no problem. These are also the envelopes that are really deep, which I didn't feel I had enough room to put a pocket. And if I'd have thought about it, I would have stuck this flap down first and then collaged over it, but I didn't think about it. So I just decorate it with some washi, and then I think I use a stencil again, and I just stencil a pattern onto it. There's no mistakes in this type of project. In fact, I sometimes feel the less precious you are about something, the better the outcome. You kind of get that more sporadic look, and I just like that. I like perfectly imperfect. I feel like you don't feel as much pressure when you're creating, and you can just enjoy the process more rather than worrying about everything. So I think there's something to be said about not worrying about mistakes or perceived mistakes. Right, so we're back to our last one now, using that really wide washi tape again. On this one, I do it slightly differently, and I decide to use an embossing folder on it. This one is my favourite one because the embossing folder just adds just that extra layer of detail that I love. Now, this is an extra step, obviously, and if you wanted to make this a really, really quick project, you know, obviously it's a step that can be missed out. I was just experimenting, really. I wanted to know how the embossing folder would work over the washi tape, and it worked really, really well. It's a Spellbinders embossing folder that I use, and I think it's called Collins. I'll show it in a little while. It's one of my favourite ones. Spellbinders always do really nice size embossing folders, and this fits this long envelope perfectly. So I could fit the whole lot in there. And I pop it in, run it through, and then this is what it looks like. And I love how it came out. I'm definitely going to have to remember to do this again in the future. And I also like, it's because of the pattern on the window, it draws your eye away a little bit from that blue. Gives you a little bit of a distraction from it, makes it less obvious. And I'm just covering the sticky bits over again here with some washi. And then I just put them together like I have done the others. And because I had the pattern on that flap, I just went over with my ink and just darkened it a little bit. And if you have a look, you can see how it really brings out the pattern. I really like that. I'm definitely going to try this again with embossing folders. Now, this paper is some scraps I had from my correspondence kit that I cut up. It went perfectly with the style of the washi that I'd used, and I just added some pockets onto there. So this is the first one. We'll fill these in a little bit. That's the second one. And then we've got the third one. And then finally, the last one that we did with the embossing, my favourite one. I love how that's turned out. Right, so let's fill these a bit. Now, I have all of these labels. These are in various kits, and I will link them in the description if you would like to have a look at them. But I wanted to get these out because I love them, but I don't reach for them enough. So I'm popping them in first because I really want to try and get these used. I printed them out on lots of different sizes and different types of paper as well. But I've got loads of them. So on this one is the one where I added pockets on top of pockets. So you can see the wood grain one at the bottom I added in. And then there's also the beigey one higher up than that with that blue and red stripe I added on as well. And then I use these tickets, which I do actually put inside the folder, but I also use as pockets. So just by getting these out to store them, I have actually ended up using them anyway. So it's working really well already. I've got a video on these tickets. I will link that below as well. And then I put another little pocket here onto that beige one. So you can see I just started adding pockets in as I needed them. If you were a little bit pushed for time, you could even make the base of these and then just add your pockets in later for whatever it is you needed to use them for. I had this other ephemera from years and years ago, which I really want to try and use up. So I popped those in there as well. And I did find a little book plate, which I thought would be great for going on the front of there. So at the end of the video, you'll see me stick that down. Next is birds. I've got some birds on the left, which are still in the tub. They are cut from book page. And I thought they were a little bit too flimsy to go into the envelopes without bending. So I'm keeping those where they are. But those ones on the right are either from a kit that I have, which I will link as well, or they are from a kit that I was working on, which I was going to call Painted Birds. I didn't end up releasing that kit, but it's really nice, so I might reconsider doing something with that. And I also, in my own time, this was probably a good few months ago as well, stamped a load of these flowers and then cut them out. So I'm going to pop those away in this larger one. Again, because it's just that, it feels like it's that time of year to use that type of stuff up. So they're going in the envelope as well. And that fourth booklet, I haven't used at the moment. It's just there ready for when I need it. I thought I would just show you as well. I'm sticking these book plates down that I found when I was having a dig around. They just finished them off nicely, I think, on the front. And then I've just popped them into my metal rack, all ready to go and ready to be used. So here are some pictures of what I've made today. I really, really love how they turned out. Really happy with them. As I said, it was a really quick project. I was probably working for no more than an hour to an hour and a half. That's to complete all four and to fill them as well. If you decide to have a go at one of these or you've made something similar, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more and to select the notification bell. Also, if you would like to check out my second channel, there will be a link to that in the description as well. Or you can click the icon that you see on the screen. Until next time, take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye.